Okay, and on with the plot. Part 7. In Mirator, something's amazing. Historia, we'll call that history. And something amazing happened. Rodanum, this is the Rhode River. Arma and Lorica retente Sertoria. So in history, something amazing happened to Sertorio while he was retaining or holding onto his lorica, which is armour of the chest and with his arms. He had transnatatum, he'd swim across the Rhone or whatever river it was. And Cornwall in this moment of time, because they're crossing the Tigris River, I think, there were quidam militares. There were certain soldiers who were Tabartides, so they were a bit confused or whatever, and they were veritae, so they were fearful, verba fearing, ut near inverted. And they feared lest they remained. They feared that if they remained post the signal after the call to swim across the river had happened. Erectum on scutus, so something lying stiff on a shield, which were patula, which means they're round, smooth, and in curva. So it looks like these shields they're pretty small and curved, etc. And so adherentes, that's the plural, they were sticking on these, prone, so they're lying down rather firmly and sticking to these shields or holding their shields. I don't think the shields would float, but anyway. Eaqui licet, this probably means although they were in peritae, so they were inexperienced in regendo, in controlling their swimming through the Voragesanum Amnum. This is through the river. Vorages usually means there's like a whirlpool or a current or something in it. Velocitatem looks like rather quickly they were comitatai. They accompanied or they were together with the naviums, with the ships. And they were companions of the ships, you might want to say if you want to genitive it. And 8, so contra these people, contra the Romans, were the Perses, the Persians. Obicarant, they were cast up against them. Instructus, so they were drawn up in termus, which are squadrons equitum of horsemen, cataphractorum, some sort of iron plating the knights had, and sic, thus they were confertas, packed together, so that the laminus, these are the metal layers of the cataphractorum, coaptata, so these are adapted, flexus corporums, so it looks like these laminated metal plates bent around the bodies, maybe you might want to say. And obtutus, so that means in the viewing, to look at them, to look at the cursing, to look at them running up, this would praestringerate or graze your eyes by their splendor. So there's like gleaming and splendor coming off these metal things. And operamentus scortius, so scortius is leather, operamentus is like a covering. So with leather coverings, there was, with a multitude of equorums, a multitude of the horses with leather coverings, omne defensa. So I guess all these were defended, all the horses were defended with leather and all the men with iron or something. Quorum, of which in subsidies, this is the auxiliary bands of people, were locatai sunt, or placed menipulais, this is like a group, I'm not sure how many people are in it, of peditum, of infantry soldiers, and they were contecti, they were covered up with scutus, again from up here, the shields. Now these shields were in curva and patula. These scutus are oblong, which is rectangular, and curved, and quae, which are texted, covered or woven with vimines, which are vines, and crudis chorus. This is another type of leather, like this leather. I think this one's more dry or something. So with more crude, dry rawhide or something, gastantes, that's what they were wearing, and they were rather densely packed together, commover banting, say, moving themselves, and they were packed together dense. Postos, behind these people were elephanti, not camels, but elephants. Speci, with the appearance of double genitive, gradientium collium, of a walking hill. So there must have been big elephants, have tusks and all that stuff. They look like walking hill. And motu, by the motions, imanium corporum. Imanium means monstrous, so with motions of enormous or monstrous corporums, bodies, to anyone who is pro prinquantibusing, anyone who was coming close, they were intended banting. They were, I guess they brought them an exodum, a death. I don't know why you want to convert that to English, but anyway, documentus from past documentaries. Well, they didn't watch documentaries as examples. From praeteritus, from times which are passed by, they were formidati, they were to be feared and dreaded. Hinc, there's an adverb. So from here, the imperator, the emperor, with a catervus, these are a band or groups. We got infirmus peditum, the weakest of the foot soldiers. In the medium into the aches, in between the two lines, the medium would be the ground between, here we have a spatium, so in the space, which is in the middle between both sides, the weakest of the foot soldiers, secundum, following the disposition or the arrangements of Homer in the Iliad, he praestituit, so he ordered the weakest people to be stuck in the middle. Nay lest, from locator priores, so maybe if they're placed more frontwards, they might sedente, they might run off deformita in an ugly fashion, and avertrent, turn away the cunctos, the others. So if they're all frightened, they might make the others fear and run off, sequum with them. Or if they were post signos, this is post behind the standards, pone behind all of the centuries, because these are the people who give the orders, rejecti, so yeah, they're placed back there, with nullo, with no one to retain them, retenenting. They might be more licentious, they might have more freedom or will to verterant their terga, to turn their backs, if there's no one there to retain them. Himself, this would be the imperator, with levis armatura, with light armoured auxiliaris. He was discouraging. He was running about per prima and postrema, between the front and the back. 10. Ergo. Therefore then, ubi, when, vicissim, in turn, contigua. Contiguous things are near each other. When they could kernerent, say partes, so when each side could see the other, they could discern them from being close. With the cristatus galleus, cristatus, there's a lot of that plumage on the gallia is a helmet, so it's helmets with feathers on them or whatever. So the Romani, the Romans with their feathered helmets, corusking, so they're glistening, and they are vibrantes qui clipios, and they're brandishing their shields or whatever they are, velut, just as if pedis anapastai, praesintibus modulus. So modulus is like modes or melodies, praesinius is something to do with singing, and anapaste pedis, the Spartan way of advancing. So they proceeded, they proceeded rather leniently, rather slowly, as if they're singing some song and walking like Spartans or something. And the praepilatus, these would be some certain soldiers, I'm guessing, with their missilebuses. So they chuck some javelins. Pro percursitors, pro usually means in front, so the runners or the attackers from the front have been thrown. Principus, meaning at the beginning, pugnae of the battle, temptatus, so they attempted this at the beginning of the battle, throwing javelins. And so, excita, everything was begun and excited, and undique, from everywhere, the humus, which is female, it's the ground, was portabartering, it was carrying, it looks like dirt was, and earth was being carried everywhere in the way of a rapido turbine, like a rapid whirlwind or something like this, I'm assuming. 11. En cum undique, and when from everywhere, undique is everywhere, in the solito more, in their custom more, in the custom manner, there was conclamoring, so there was shouting. Virorumque, and of the man, Alacritatum, that's enthusiasm. Briskness, sonatia classica. Classicas are the horns. So there was like the enthusiastic or brisk sonantica, sounds of horns. These were euverating. These are now helping. So the shouts and the horns blasting was helping. And hasas with spears and micronobuses. These are your edges of your swords. Which means swords in general. They're stricter. So with the swords districted or pulled out, and the spears, hink, then, inde, then, again, Ammianus, that's the adverb for close to close, hand to hand, pugnabata. So with spears and swords, they were fighting very close. Okay. Sagittarum periculus, of the dangers of the arrows, the miles erat. That's just a singular for a group of soldiers. The soldiers were immune to the pericles, the dangers of the arrows, quantum, and as much as they occupied festinatius, rather fast, the interior. So they must have been deep inside of, they're coming near hand to hand. They must have got inside into the interior of the enemy lines, and so now there was no fear of arrows. And interque, amongst these things which were happening, Julianus, he's the emperor, he was fulcering, he was giving support to the subsidiaries, to the auxiliaries, and inciting them when they were pulse off when they've been beaten back, and they are tardentes, they are slow, quasi, as if strenuous. So a contermalis, con means a fellow, as if he was a fellow squad member. He was hastening strenuously and rector. So he was going around helping people who were beaten or a bit slow, and acting as like a fellow soldier, and also the rector, which is the guy controlling it. And 12, the last bit. Laxiqui, itaque, accis prima. The accis prima is the front row lines, itaque, and so accordingly. Persarum of the Persians was laxata, it was loosening. And Lenai slowly before, it looks like, and deinde, and then with a concito grado, with a quickening step. In calefactus armis, in heating up armour, they gradients means they walked or they ran. Retrosus means in a backwards direction. Petabating, seeking a propinquinum urban, a nearby city, which miles, our soldiers, it looks like sequibator, followed them. Itaden in the same place basically. Well, likewise, they were fessus, they was tired in the campus torridus, in the scorching plains, and usque da finem, and as far as the end of the day, from Lucas Orto, from the rising of the sun, decernens, they went along. So here's the daily dictionary word, intento, from one of the first lines. Here it would have meant threatening or menacing. That's when we had the elephants, etc. Okay, and we'll finish up 12. So they were fighting from when the sun rose to the end of the day, and eos occipitus, this occipitus looks like the back of the heads. They were sticking, adhering to the backs of the head rather pertinently or persistently. Cum, these capital letters here are three proper nouns of the Persians. The most potissimus, the most preferable or powerful ducibus is the generals. So these three generals, adusque, as far as the muros sedifontis, the walls of this city, egerted. Ferians means they were striking. The suras, these are the calves, and the turga, and the backs of the adversaries, the enemies. Pray kitem, blah blah blah, and that's it for the day.